All right, welcome everybody. This talk is called How to Deploy All the JavaScript Frameworks to Cloud Run, and if we want a chance of living up to that title, we need to start now. My name is Luke. I am a developer advocate at Google, and specifically I help JavaScript developers on Google Cloud. Prior to that, I spent 5 years teaching, and I taught JavaScript development to students at a coding bootcamp and then at a Fortune 500 company for the onboarding program. And I watched so many people build incredible JavaScript applications and then not deploy them. And I get it, it's intimidating. I've been there myself. I think we all have, right? You build this really cool thing, and then it's time to actually get it off of localhost and go get it out into the world, and you don't know where to start. That's what we're going to talk about today. Especially if you wait until after you add a database and a whole bunch of other things, it gets tricky. Today I'm going to show you how we're going to create applications and then immediately go to deploy them. I saw somebody just close their laptop cover. Do get those out. I am going to show in a second how you can follow along with everything that I'm doing today. Everything I'm doing today is GA. I have no special permissions or abilities. You'll be able to do everything that I am doing today. For today, success means deploying to a public URL on the internet so that anybody in the world has access to these websites. So when I say deploying a website, that's what I mean. I also have no previously written code. So once again, everything I'm doing today, you can do today. I'm going to be doing quite a few JavaScript frameworks. If you just want to do one or two, that is fantastic as well. So please do follow along. If you've got your computer here, I expect you'll be able to do everything that I'm doing. With this, you came to a talk called How to Deploy All the JavaScript Frameworks to Cloud Run. So we're going to deploy a whole bunch of JavaScript frameworks. So that should be really exciting. I need you to shout out now which frameworks you'd like to do. We're going to kind of get a poll of the room here. What frameworks do you want to deploy? Next.js, Svelte, Vue, React, Remix, Angular. All right, of course. This is a Google conference. Of course we're going to do that. So we're going to see, so maybe we can do one of those. Nah, let's go, folks. Let's do at least two. No, not sold. Okay, we'll see if we can do 4. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to do 8. We're going to do 8 deployments today. So of course we're going to do Angular, Angular SSR specifically. Then we're going to do Next.js, Remix, SvelteKit, Solid Start, Astro, and Quick. I think I heard somebody say React earlier, and if you do not obsess over JavaScript like I do, you might be thinking like, wait a second, where is Vue? Somebody said Vue. Where is React? Yeah, where in the world are those? They are in here. They are actually hiding in here. So Angular SSR is the server-side rendering. That's what SSR stands for, server-side rendering. It's the server-side rendering framework for Angular. Next.js is the server-side rendering framework for Vue.js. You're noticing the pattern here. Next.js and Remix, both of these are server-side rendering frameworks for React. And then we're going to do 4 more just for fun, but the same concept still applies. We've got the server-side rendering framework for these front-end libraries or front-end frameworks. So that is what we will be doing today. We'll be deploying all of these applications. So why server-side rendering? We're going to be doing server-side rendering, one, because it has a lot of advantages. In fact, the React documentation, you can go look at it right now at react.dev, it recommends choosing a framework. It recommends choosing a framework because there are so many things that you can do, but there are so many similar problems that you'll face when building any client-side application. And you often have to figure out, hey, how am I going to do routing? How am I going to do code splitting? How am I going to do all of these different things that are these common shared problems? And a framework solves a lot of those for you. So that is why we're going to be starting with a framework. Also, server-side rendering lends itself really nicely to a product like Cloud Run. Cloud Run really excels at deploying these types of applications. So please do follow along. I've got this up here, and I'm also going to, in case you don't type it while I'm on this single slide, I'm going to leave it up on the bottom of the next couple of slides. Go to goo.gle/js-frameworks. And again, I'm going to leave that here on the bottom of the slide, goo.gle/js-frameworks. So these are the 8 frameworks that we are going to deploy. If I have not sold you on deploying a server-side rendered framework and you say, Luke, nope, not going to accept that, needs to be the compiled or transpiled JavaScript itself. It needs to be that client-side application. You can do that on Cloud Run. You can absolutely create a container, create a Docker file, and maybe use Nginx to deploy that on Cloud Run. I would actually recommend a different product for that, and that is Firebase hosting. And because this is Google I/O, we finally get to talk about Firebase app hosting for Next.js and Angular. So if you are using either of those, yeah, okay, I didn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, woo! I'll take the credit for that. Yeah, that feels great. Yeah, that team did incredible work. I'm super pumped about Firebase app hosting. But if you are looking to do static sites specifically, Firebase hosting is the route to go. I would not recommend Cloud Run just because it's not built for that. It can do that, but Firebase hosting comes with a built-in CDN and a whole bunch of other things that make it really nice for that exact use case. So if you say, Luke, I'm not going to listen to you about the frameworks thing, but I still want to deploy, check out Firebase hosting. Okay, let's go back to this list because I know not everyone in here is a JavaScript developer. I want to just take 1 second to call this out. All of this is JavaScript. And we know the ecosystem is wild over here. We know. Welcome. You'll do just fine. You'll do just fine today. Everything we're doing today is in the terminal. You'll be able to follow along. It's going to be great. So all of this is JavaScript. Okay. We're doing it. We're going to do 8 frameworks in the next 38 minutes because otherwise I get ripped off the stage by someone. So this is where we're going to start. So it's shell.cloud.google.com. Now you can follow along locally on your own terminal if you would like. I'm going to be using shell.cloud.google.com. And the reason for this is because it has a few nice things about it. I'm going to make that a little bigger so that folks can see it. So we're going to be using this for building these applications, and people are still squinting, so I'm going to zoom in. Oh, that's because, yeah, here we go, shell.cloud.google.com. And again, if you go to go.gle/js-frameworks, all of the steps are there, including how to get here. So shell.cloud.google.com. This is a virtual machine that lives in the cloud. So when you type a command, it gets sent over the wire, runs in a data center somewhere, and then the result comes back to you. So this is a virtual machine with 5 gigabytes of storage. That's actually going to matter later because some of you might know how large these framework packages can get, all of the node modules we're going to be installing. So we will actually have to do a clean wipe. If you would like to follow along on your own terminal, though, you can do that as well. If you are going to do that, I need to call out that the gcloud CLI, Git, Node.js, and NPM do come pre-installed on Cloud Shell. So I'm not going to be doing those install steps, but if you've been doing a little bit of JavaScript development with Google Cloud, you likely already have these installed. All right. Let's start running these commands. This first set of commands, this is for our environment setup. So we're only going to need to run this one time. This is not once for each framework. And I'm going to start doing those commands over here. Again, I'm going to be flipping back and forth a whole bunch of times. And if you try to follow this, you will get dizzy. So if you are trying to follow along with me, do not try to type along with me. Look at that lab and follow the steps there. All of them are written out. You don't have to guess what the next command I'm going to write is or type along as quickly as I do. You'll be fine just going through those steps. I am going to open up 4 tabs in order to do this because I'm going to be deploying 8 frameworks. If you decided you're just going to deploy 1, you do not need to do that part. You just open up 1 tab, follow along with 1 at a time, and do maybe 1 or 2 at your own pace. So here, I keep typing ls because I just do that by habit, and I want to prove the thing I said earlier, which is I have no pre-existing code. In case you are skeptical of that README, I'm just going to go ahead and remove that as well. So this is a command you do not need to run, but now when I type ls, you can see no tricks up my sleeve. I do think this still feels magical, which is why I feel like a very cheap magician here saying look, I have no tricks up my sleeve because this does feel like super cool what we're about to do. We're about to deploy 8 JavaScript frameworks in 35 minutes. So I've got 4 different tabs open, and we're going to do the setup. So the first 2 things that I'm going to do is do my gcloud configuration. So here I'm configuring the region, that is where this code will be running in the cloud. So this is my region. I'm going to be choosing US Central 1 because I'm from the Midwest and I like my friends in Iowa. So this is going to be deploying to US Central 1. And then the next command we will run, gcloud config, set project, my project name. Anything in blue you see today, that is going to be different for you. You're going to type something different. You're going to type the name of your project when we get to that line. So let's go ahead and run those first 2 commands. gcloud config, set run region, US Central 1. gcloud config, set run region, US Central 1. All right, so that says anything we do going forward, we're going to assume is US Central 1. You don't have to do that. You can type that in individually with each deployment. I actually typically do that, but since I'm doing 8 deployments in a row, I'm going to set a default there. So gcloud config set run region US Central 1. I'm going to run that across all 4 of my tabs. Again, you do not need to do that if you are not trying to deploy 4 simultaneous applications. Okay, so now that I've done that, and I've done that across all 4 of my tabs, the next command is gcloud config set project, my project name. So gcloud config set project, and my project is called JS-frameworks. Your project will be called something else. If you get a pop-up that says authorize Cloud Shell, hit enter or click authorize. So this is saying, all right, everything we're deploying today is going to go to US Central 1, and the project I'm using is JS Frameworks. I, once again, need to copy that across all 4 tabs. You do not need to copy that against all 4 tabs because you are not deploying all 4 at the same time. Unless you are, in which case you are very brave. And I want to know how it goes, so come and talk to me after. So then we have git config -- global user.name. So this is Git. Git is version control on your computer. You may already have these 3 things set, but I'm going to set it as if this is my first time using Git on this machine. So it's git config global user.name. You don't need this for some of the frameworks, but for some of the frameworks, they assume that you're going to be using Git for version control, and they do expect you to have these things configured on your computer. So that is what I'm going to be doing over here. I forgot to say at the beginning, there are folks on the side. If you do have questions, please raise your hand and people can hop in to help you out. So git config -- global user.name, your name. I'm going to do that here. Git config -- global user.name. Here, your name, likely different than mine. Pause for laughter is what my notes say. Thank you, appreciate it. I'll take the pity laugh. Git config -- global user.name. So there I've set my name, and then same thing for email. Git config -- global user.email. And this is luke@example.com. luke@example.com. And then the last one here, again, not necessary, but what I like to do for all of my Git environments is set my default branch. So it's init.default branch. I like to set it to, does it have quotes or not? No, it does not. Main. And that is all the configuration that we need to do. These 3 do apply to the global Git configuration, so I don't need to run them across all 4 tabs. So I should be okay there. All right, so now we finally are in the situation where our environment's set up. We are ready to start deploying things via our Cloud Shell editor. Those were the commands to run, so we are going to start with our first framework, and that is Angular SSR. Before doing this one, these are not actually the commands I'm going to run. I just want to call out that there's more than one way to do all of this. So this is a standard way of creating a new application. But instead of running this, I'm going to be running this. Why am I doing it this way today? Because I am prone to typos, and I don't want to make them today. So this, just fewer commands, makes it easier for me to avoid making a typo. So the only thing that I'm going to make harder on myself is I'm going to make these names a little longer instead of calling it my app, because I'm going to have 8 apps today, and I don't want all of them to be called my app. I'm going to be calling each one Angular app or Remix app or Next app or Nuxt app. You may call it whatever you want. Again, in blue, feel free to change. You don't have to change these ones, but feel free to change these if you'd like to call it my to-do app or whatever you'd like. So npx, for this first one, npx at Angular CLI, and I forgot the command, new Angular app. And this is going to be server-side rendering application. And now it'll take a second here, and one thing I'll call out as we do this is for anything that's not already defined in one of the commands itself, I'm going to be accepting the default. So in that case, that means hitting enter in most of these cases to accept whatever the default is. So if you really love TypeScript or VincC or Dino or Bun or PNPM, whatever the default is, that's what I'm accepting today. Others should work. Please don't get angry with me. Save the angry comments for how I set the configuration of my Cloud Shell to white so that people in the back could see, but everybody's going to be upset about that. So I'm sorry. That's just so that people can see. So again, this is just accepting the defaults. So CSS is what I will choose. And now it's going to go ahead and install those packages. So that is our fourth rule for the day, shortest command possible. And fifth rule for the day is that we are going to be accepting the defaults. So these are the commands I'm going to run. npx at Angular CLI, that's the one we're running right now. Then we'll use cd. Cd is change directory. We're going to navigate into that new folder that we've created there as the package is spun up. And then gcloud run deploy allow unauthenticated. So let's see if we spun it up. Perfect timing. So type ls. Now the only thing I have in here is that Angular app. I'm going to make that a little bit for a moment. As long as things fit on the page, I can go ahead and continue to leave it that size. So I'm going to cd into Angular app, type ls. There's my Angular application. And now gcloud run deploy, and then allow unauthenticated. Allow unauthenticated. Now, you can still add authentication. You can still add authorization to this site. What allow unauthenticated means is allow unauthenticated requests. And that is so that we can conform to that first rule that we made for ourselves, which is that anyone in the world can come and visit our website. So once this is deployed, anyone in the world can come and visit our website. That's our Angular app. It's currently deploying. I will take applause after it deploys. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Oh, I appreciated your willingness. I saw a few people go for it right away. But no, I won't beg for applause quite yet. We'll give it a second here. All right, so that is our Angular app. Those are our 5 rules. Let's go ahead and move on to our Nuxt.js application, which is views. So somebody said they wanted to deploy a view app earlier. This is our view application. So this is going to be npx nuxi init Nuxt app. npx nuxi init Nuxt app. So this is our Nuxt application, which again is Vue, which again is built on JavaScript. So that is what we're doing. We're accepting the defaults. The default is npm here, so now it's installing dependencies. You'll notice that that's the longest wait time that we have for almost all of these is installing the dependencies. And now after Nuxt, we've got Next, which is our first React framework. So this is going to be npx create next app, npx create next app, next app. Again, next app, the second one there, is the name of our application. Did that right? Yes? Okay. So that's our next application. Again, we're going to pause here a second, make sure to accept all of the defaults. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, and now that one's installing dependencies. And now we will go to our fourth tab, our first Remix app, but our second React app. So both Next.js and Remix are React applications. So this is going to be, yes, this is going to be npx create remix app, remix app. And we get a 404, which is exactly what I wanted. Exactly what I wanted. No problems there. Okay. Actually, read the notes you wrote yourself, Luke. Here we go. Create remix app. All right, let's accept these defaults. All right, so we've got one application, yes, initialize, install dependencies, accepting the defaults. And now all of them should be installing their dependencies. Yes. Our Nuxt app has been created. Our Next app has been created. And our Remix app is installing its dependencies. Let's go and cd into our Nuxt app. And again, as promised, I am hopping all over the place. So if you'd like to follow along, that lab is going to be a much better way to do that. But I'm going to gcloud run deploy, allow unauthenticated. So our Nuxt app is on its way. It is deploying. We're going to cd into our Next app, gcloud run deploy, allow unauthenticated. And let's do that for our Remix application. gcloud run deploy, allow unauthenticated. What did I forget? Change directory. Yeah, excellent. All right, cd remix app. Now gcloud run deploy. Allow unauthenticated. Let's see. All right. So now we've got these 3 on their way. They are deploying, and our Angular app. There we go. Now I'll take that in applause. Yeah. We got it. We got it. There it is. We've got our Angular app. If you go to this URL right now at this moment, you should be able to see that. Depending on how many people try and DOS this, I may have to turn it off, but this is live right now and up and running. So fantastic. We've got one good to go. While the others are deploying, I'll talk a little bit about how this works. Because right now, we're doing something kind of wild. We've created these projects, and then we just say, all right, Cloud Run, like, good luck. Like, here's just a pile of code, figure it out. And there are actually 3 products. It's not just Cloud Run, but 3 products involved in making this happen. It's Cloud Build, which creates the container. So it creates the container image that we'd like to run. Artifact Registry, which stores that container image until finally we're ready to run it with Cloud Run. So Cloud Build, Artifact Registry, and Cloud Run. And the one that's actually doing most of the work is Cloud Build. So we can see that here if we go gcloud run deploy allow unauthenticated. You might have seen this. I moved pretty quickly through it. But there's this line here that says this command is equivalent to running gcloud build submit and then gcloud run deploy Angular app. And so that's essentially that creating the image and then deploying the image. So you need to build that image and then deploy that image. So it's the same as that. Now, how is it doing it? We don't have a Docker file. So how is it doing it? It's actually that little flag right there, --pack. We are using something called build packs. Build packs. So this says building using build packs and deploying container to Cloud Run service. So build packs is one of the ways that Cloud Build does that. It's the way that it does it automatically without you providing a Docker file. So build packs do a lot of really cool things in order to do that because remember, we didn't even tell it that this was a JavaScript application. We just threw it a bunch of code and then it needed to figure out the rest. So detect the JavaScript application, that's number 1. If you were doing this on your own, you might have a few guesses as to how you might do that. Maybe we're looking for a package.json file, right? Maybe we're looking for, does it have a config file that matches with Nuxt or Next? That's essentially right. That's essentially right. It goes through those steps. Then install the dependencies for JavaScript. This is pretty standard, run an npm install. So it will decide, yes, this is a JavaScript application. I'm going to run an npm install. And then build the application for JavaScript applications. Again, that's pretty standard, npm run build. And then it will decide how to start the application. And this is the hard part. This is the hard part, deciding how to start the application. So let's take a look at how this works for Angular. So this is a package.json file for an Angular application. I do not expect you to be able to read that. So we're going to zoom in here on this script section. So for an Angular SSR application, we actually get this script that says serve :SSR : and then the name of your app. So in my case, my app was called Angular-app. And it says when you get to this line, run it with node dist/AngularApp/server server.mjs. What's really cool about build packs is you don't have to guess how this works. Sorry, I should give this slide a warning. This is Go code. This is Go code. If you're like, this doesn't look like any JavaScript, I know. You're OK. You're still in the right room. This is some Go code. But I promise you'll be able to understand what it's doing. This is what it's looking for. It's saying, OK, look for serve :SSR : and run that command. Run that command. That's how it works for Angular SSR. You can see all of this on GitHub. You can see all of this on GitHub. It's there if you go to Google Cloud Build Packs. So how does it do it for Nuxt.js? Every one of these has their own flavor. Every one of these has their own flavor. So Nuxt.js, how do we do it? Well, there's no serve :SSR : there's no serve : and no start script. So how do we do it? Well, the way Build Packs does it is by looking up, hey, how does Nuxt do this in their documentation? We're going to do whatever the idiomatic way of running a Nuxt.js application is. So that detection that we talked about earlier, this is saying if this project has a nuxt.config.ts file and it's got this .output/server/index.mjs file, that's how we're going to run it, because that's what the documentation says. So we're going to run node dot output slash server slash index.mjs. That's how we run Nuxt.js applications on Cloud Run. So that is what build packs is doing for us under the hood. So that's how we deployed those first 4 applications. Let's see how it's going over there. We've got our Nuxt.js application. We've got our, yep, keep the applause going. We've got our Next.js application, and we've got our, Remix application. All right. Well, Remix application. All right. Woo. Okay, so we've got 4 applications deployed now. Now, something you don't have to do if you're following along locally, but will have to do if you're trying to follow along with all 8 today with me live, which is wild. Why did you choose to do that? If that is what you chose to do, I'm going to remove all of the existing applications from my virtual machine here. Now, they are all still running. If you go to those URLs, they're all still running in Cloud Run. The reason I'm doing this is because Cloud Shell gives me 5 gigabytes of storage here on this virtual machine, and our node modules are going to overflow by the time we get to that eighth framework deployment. So I'm going to say, remove our Angular application, remove our Next application, remove our Nuxt application, and remove our Remix application. Okay, so those are all cleared out. Now when I type ls, once again, I have nothing up my sleeves. So here I'm going to cd just to make sure that we're back to normal on all 4 of these, because we've got 4 more to go and 18 minutes. Too much time. Way too easy. All right, let's clear these out. All right, I think we are good for our next 4. All right, and this was our Angular one, which is still up and running. We're going to cd and clear, just so that we give ourselves a nice working environment. So again, the commands that I ran there, and again, you don't have to do this locally, but if you're following along with me on Cloud Shell, I just needed to clean up a little bit of space for myself here. So it's rm-rf, Angular-app, Nuxt app, Next app, and Remix app. So that just gives me a little bit more space. And with that, we can move on to SvelteKit. So SvelteKit is the next in our lineup. We've got npx create Svelte app. So npx create Svelte app. And I'm going to accept the defaults. Yes, yes, yes. All right, and I'm going to cd into that Svelte app and gcloud run deploy allow unauthenticated. All right, so our Svelte app is deploying. By default, it doesn't run an npm install. That's why that happens so much faster than some of those other applications. Then we're going to do the same thing with our solid start application, because I know some of you were thinking, hey, 8 apps in 45 minutes, that seems a little bit too easy. How about you do one that's still in beta? Yeah, okay, all right, great. We'll pick a framework that's still in beta, solid start here. And the commands for that are npx create solid app, npx create solid app. Once again, accept the defaults. Yes, yes, yes. Creating project. cd into solid app. gcloud run deploy. Allow unauthenticated. Fantastic. So those 2 are on their way to Cloud Run, being built by Cloud Build. So now we're moving into Astro. So at this point, you're getting the sense of how this works, right? It's getting a little bit repetitive. We've built the app, we change directory into it, we gcloud run deploy. And those are all for our supported frameworks, the frameworks that Cloud Build supports out of the box, 0 configuration necessary. But now these last 2 are going to take a slightly different approach. And that's because the frameworks have chosen to do something slightly different than what is standard among the other frameworks. And that's okay. There are still ways to deploy these types of applications. So with Astro, we say npx create Astro, Astro app. npx create Astro, Astro app, cd Astro app. And then we have 2 commands that we haven't really seen before. Those ones we'll dive into and explain. But that last one looks pretty familiar as well, gcloud run deploy. So these 3 commands should look pretty similar, right? These are pretty similar to the other applications we've deployed. So let's talk about these other 2. npx Astro add node. Some of you may know that Node is no longer the only runtime, the only environment, the only game in town for JavaScript. There are other environments now where you can run your JavaScript code. So this says we are going to be using the Node adapter. the node adapter. We're going to be using the node environment, so we're letting Astro know, hey, the things that you do to run in a node environment, we want you to do those. The next thing is actually just the same as going into our package.json and changing the start script, but I've done this from the CLI so that people following along can stay within the CLI if they'd like to. What we're saying is change the start script to host 0.0.0.0 node./dist/server/entry.mjs. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about why we're doing this. So the package.json by default for Astro says that the start script is Astro dev. We do not want to be deploying our application to production in development mode. We don't want to be deploying our application to production in development mode. So we're going to take a look at our build packs and see how do we deploy an application that's not supported out of the box with build packs. And the answer is that build packs just runs whatever the npm start script is. If you have a start script, that's what we're going to run. And again, by default, the trick is that Astro runs the dev environment with npm start. So we don't want to do that. We want to change that. So Astro's recommendation is that we use node./dist/server/entry.mjs. And because we want to accept every single request, we're also going to throw on this host equals 0.0.0.0. I think that was the right number of zeros. So that's what this command is. It's just saying change the start script to that. All right, let's go ahead and run these commands. So we'll npx create Astro app. Yes, we'll accept that default. So this, once again, will install our dependencies, just like the other ones. So include sample files, yes, accepting the defaults, install dependencies, and initialize a new Git repository. Remember how we used Git earlier when we were setting things up with our configuration? So Git is being used in this project by default. It'll create a nice initial config, nice initial commit for us with Git. So that's part of what it's doing during this process. So again, the two new commands are npx astro add node for our node adapter, and then npm pkg set scripts.start so that it knows what to run when we get to the point where we're starting to run our application in Cloud Run. So cd into Astro app. And there it is. We've got our Astro app, and we're going to npx astro add node for the node adapter. Node.js is the runtime that Cloud Run uses. So yes, we will install that. This is a pretty quick install. Yes, excellent. OK, so now we've got our application, and the last thing we need to do is change that start script. So we could open your favorite editor of choice, whatever that is, the same as yours. And then we're going to go ahead and just do this instead. npm pkg set scripts.start equals host 0.0.0. Uh-oh, it's going off the screen. 0.0.0.0 node. And if you see a typo, please say something. This is not like for your educational benefit that I'm going to be making a mistake on purpose. So please let me know. So dot/dist/server/entry.mjs. What? What did I do? Whew, thank you. MJS. OK, and now if I look at my package.json file, I should see this right here. So this is what I just changed. I just changed that line with that npm pkg set. And now I can gcloud run deploy, allow unauthenticated. And while that's deploying, let's take a look. Our SvelteKit app, woo! And we've got our Solid app. All right. Cool, cool. It's working. It's working. And our Astro app is currently being deployed. And that brings us to number 8. And we still got 10 minutes. All right, we're doing great. Quick. Quick is our 8th application that we are going to create and then deploy. And this one brings us back down to 4 commands, 3 of which are very familiar at this point. And then we've got npm run quick add cloud run. And this is the quick Cloud Run adapter. So it's not a generic node adapter at this point. This is a Cloud Run adapter. So their adapter is specific to Cloud Run. And I think this one's really cool because it's going to allow me to show you another way that Cloud Build can deploy things. And that is with Docker files. So if you would like Cloud Build to figure everything out for you, if you'd like it to magically figure out what your application is and how to deploy it, just throw your code over there and BuildPacks will do it. If you have a specific way you would like your application to be built, a specific order of things, or you've got a specific optimized build process that you'd like to run, Cloud Build will first look to see if you have a Docker file. And that will trump everything else that we've got inside of here. So anything that it does in BuildPacks, it'll just ignore all of that if you have a Docker file. It will go to your Docker file and run those steps. So what is a Docker file? A Docker file is I'm sorry, this is not a DevOps talk, but I promise this will be worth it. A Docker file is a text document that contains all the commands a user could call on the command line to assemble an image. So what is it saying? Well, any commands that we might run in order to build, install, build, and run our application, that's what a Docker file can do. So this is an example of an overly simplified Docker file for a JavaScript application. And if you've never seen a Docker file before, I promise, just look at these lines and you will understand what's going on. So what we're saying is we're going to be using Node. We're going to be using a Node environment. And then we're going to run npm install to get all of our dependencies. Then we're going to be running npm run build to build our application. And then we're going to be running npm start to start our application. That's what this Docker file is saying. And we can put that with our project, and Cloud Build will ignore what it does by default with BuildPacks and instead do whatever you tell it to do with a Docker file. And why I bring that up with Quick is because that's exactly how Quick does it. So if I say npx create quick, and I'll accept those defaults. Yes, yes, yes. Sorry, I can't help get distracted. They give a joke every time you create a new application, and so I had to read it for your own enjoyment. I'm not going to pretend I made it up. So that is what Quick does in order to create a new application. So when I create this, I'm going to cd into that directory, just like I did for the other ones. But I'm going to do like a before and after so that you can actually see this happen. So when I type ls, look for Docker file. There's no Docker file in here. There's no Docker file in here right now. And then I'm going to run that command, that npm run quick add cloud run, npm run quick add cloud run. And if I type ls, now we have a Docker file. Now we have that Docker file, and I'll even cat that Docker file so that you can see what it is. And it's very similar to what we just described. It's going and getting a version of Node. npm I is actually just shorthand for npm install. And then npm run build builds our application. And then down here, instead of npm start, like we had in that fictitious version of a Docker file, this one is more similar to what happened in Nuxt, where it just says, this is the specific file that I want to start. I want to start this application by running this file. gcloud run deploy, allow unauthenticated. So that is the last way where, regardless of the type of application that you're running, if you can get it running locally, whatever steps you did to do that, write those out in a Docker file, and now you can get it to deploy to Cloud Run. We're going to give it a minute to actually deploy, but I'm going to do the arrogant thing where I assume that it worked and talk about a few other things. So if you're looking to do this type of thing in production, your initial thought might be like, okay, yeah, this is nice, this is neat, like the first 2 million requests are free every month, like that's great in Cloud Run, but what if I want to throw on a globally distributed CDN? Like, then I got to add like a load balancer and I got to configure things and I don't really know how to do this. There's actually a terrific way. Now, this is not GA, it's beta, but it's available if you'd like to try it. So gcloud beta run integrations. So this is a Cloud Run integration with Firebase, where you can say, I want to throw Firebase on top of my Cloud Run application. So if it's not something that can run in Firebase app hosting yet, if it's not Next.js or Angular, but you want to throw your Firebase CDN on top of Cloud Run, you can do that with this command. So here's an example. So if you say my service is Nuxt app, like the one we deployed earlier, then you can say I want the site ID to be my-fancy-nuxt-app, and that will then give you the URL my-fancy-nuxt-app.web.app. So you get that pretty URL at the bottom as well if you throw on that CDN. Globally distributed caching from one line, pretty phenomenal. If the other thing you're thinking is, well, like, yeah, this wouldn't work in production for me because I always deploy from source. I deploy from GitHub. I don't just deploy from my CLI with gcloud run deploy. I get it. I actually do the same thing. Go to console.cloud.google.com/run, and that's just Cloud Run in the Cloud Console. And you can set that up by saying create service, and then saying continuously deploy from a repository. Select your repository, and know you've got continuous deployment set up on your application. If it deployed with us today, out of the box, build packs will take over, or that Docker file that you gave it will take over. One last thought, because I have 4 minutes left. We're going to play a game. I need you to actually shout things out this time, and trust that other people will shout as well. On the count of 3, I want you to tell me which of these is not a JS framework. Take a second, take it in. We've got Backbone, Knockout, Ember, Wasp, Waku, TanStack, Start. All right, we all trust each other. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they all are. They all are. Every single one of them. Every single one of them is. I did hear somebody say TanStack Start. That one not technically released yet, but it is. Waku, newer as well. In fact, all 3 on the bottom are newer React frameworks. Wasp just passed 10,000 stars on GitHub. Congratulations to them. They all are. And that is wildly intimidating, right? If you're in the JavaScript world and you're just trying to stay on top of things, this is wild. I want to argue that this is a good thing. I know it's stressful. I know it's obnoxious and painful at times when you're like, well, what I learned 6 months ago feels outdated. I want to tell you that I think this is a good thing. I think this is a good thing because I don't think there's another ecosystem that evolves quite as quickly as the JavaScript ecosystem. And I think that is in big part due to the open source maintainers. So because yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Before giving this talk, SvelteKit didn't work out of the box, and Quick had some issues as well, and I reached out to those maintainers thinking they would never get back to me. All of them jumped on the opportunity and were like, yeah, let's make this better for developers. So thank you so much to those open source maintainers. I think it's absolutely incredible, the work they're doing. And if you would like something to be supported in build packs, that is open source as well. You can create an issue. All of that is terrific, and I really think that the JavaScript ecosystem has something really magical here. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.